got an IA, an inspector authorization from Flying Tiger American, who signed off the airplane and also entered a plea to let me fly. So they stalled and stalled and stalled. So I had a public relations appointment to go to the Honda airport. Honda was the only person in Old Man Honda was the only person in Japan that had a private airport, had his own airplane and executive transport and that sort of stuff. And he had an airstrip about 40 miles north of Narita, a new international airport there at Tokyo. So my first appearance was to be at the Honda airport. So about like 30 minutes before the deadline when I had to leave, my spokesman handed me the paperwork and says, "Here, go fly." So I ran upstairs, changed into my funny suit, my 1926 flight suit and helmet and goggles. Went down and jumped in the airplane and took off for Honda. One of the things I didn't understand is that each airport has its own control zone. And what goes in this control zone doesn't apply to the one next door. You got to have all new permits and that sort of stuff to go to another airport. However, Honda was a private field, so I had no problem there. But the minute that I left the Narita control zone, I was picked up by all the news helicopters and all the people from the press in Japan, right? So they followed me up there, and I had this helicopter pilot right there. He stuck his rotor right over my head, and he flew formation with me all the way up to Honda. When I got to Honda, I made a low pass. There were about 3,000 people there, and a high school band, and a whole bunch of people waiting to see the airplane. I'd been there since 6 o'clock in the morning or so. This is 1 o'clock in the afternoon. When I landed, this helicopter pilot was right there in formation with me, and I was getting a little bit irritated at him. But then they had the Floyd Caliber of Japan doing an interview, a TV interview, and of course the TV cameras were on us and all that sort of stuff. So this guy's asking me questions in Japanese, and I'm replying in English, talking to him. And finally he's running out of questions, and I said, "That's enough talk, why don't we go fly?" And he looked at me with this incredulous look on his face and said, "Can we?" And I said, "Why not?" So I took the cover off the front cockpit, put the windshield on, stuffed him in the front cockpit. He looked at me and he said in perfect English, "Please, no aerobatics." And I said, "Me either, I'm chicken. I wouldn't fly aerobatics." So as we taxi out, the news helicopter right there, right alongside of us. He's really irritating the hell out of me because he's not giving me any space. So I take off, and this guy's right with me all the way down the runway and off the end of the runway, and I get a little bit ticked at him. So I climb up to about 1,500 feet, and I thought, I'll get rid of this guy. And I did a hammerhead stall and turned right into him, and he stayed right with me. And it became a contest. Every time I did something, he was right there. I couldn't shake him. I couldn't get rid of him. So I began to admire the man rather than be irritated with him because he was such a great pilot. So we flew around for a while, came back and landed. I looked at my PR man, and he looked like he just swallowed a goldfish. I said, "What's the matter?" He says, "Nothing. Don't worry about it." So anyway, it wasn't until several months later that I looked at the paperwork that they gave me, and the paperwork said I could go fly, but no passengers. And here I am on national television giving a ride. So we got about 15 minutes on the 5:30 news, and we got over a half an hour of coverage on the 10 o'clock news that night, and the whole world knew that I was flying passengers. But the FAA, Japan FAA, never said a word. Never gave me any trouble or anything else while I was over there. And it was just amazing. It wasn't, like I said, it wasn't until weeks later that I found out I wasn't supposed to carry any passengers. But I probably flew, I would estimate between 100 and 125 passengers in Japan.
Wow. How many people have you touched deeply, even beyond those who flew?
Press people, magazine editors, government officials, all kinds of people.
Well, and will you ever know how many people you truly inspired? some kid who watched that.
You know, that was the interesting thing, because when I would go somewhere, there would be thousands of people waiting to see the airplane.
Yeah. So you have some inkling that the idea was beyond you, that you lit a fuse, if you will, that they were ready for that.
Right.
Yeah.
It was amazing. It was absolutely amazing. It was humbling. It was a humbling experience, because when we put the airplane on display at the shopping center, like I said, I was there for 10, 12 hours a day, just answering questions and talking to people and having them pose for pictures at the airplane and what have you. It was very rewarding to see these people come in, and I had people come from, pilots come from Japan Airlines and from different airlines around the country. The Japanese Flying Club made me an honorary member and gave me a set of wings and all that sort of stuff and a membership card. It was just fantastic. And it's all due to this guy right here. If it wasn't for him, that program never would have got off the ground to begin with.